Hi everyone, this is Mr Neel Raithatha, also known as the Wax Whisperer. Thank you for joining me in my latest video. This patient was heavily pregnant and they attended earlier this week, and she may well have given birth by now, so if she has, congratulations. And they've had this blockage in their left ear for a while, and they've just kept putting it off because of their pregnancy, but it came to the stage where they were hoping to give birth and then have the earwax removed. With everything else going on when you're pregnant, but they couldn't wait that long. And you may have seen that I had to withdraw from the ear quickly, and that's because the patient was just surprised by the sensation of having the sucker in the ear, and also slightly the noise. It is a bit noisier than people first anticipate, so I'm very careful that when I before I perform the procedure, I always mention that it's going to be noisy and probably a bit more so than they would imagine or expect. It just helps to acclimatise the patient. Once they're aware of the noise, they're fine, and they know what to expect. Now, in their desperation, this patient had been using a cotton bud and also been getting loads of water, and it's really heavily impacted against the eardrum. And because of the fact that they were pregnant and they weren't able to sit in a natural position because of that, so I just wanted to make sure they're as comfortable as possible. And you know, we ourselves are also steady, and because it was a bit of an awkward position if I remember correctly when I was performing it, but we managed in the end. And we have to be adaptable when we remove earwax. There's all sorts of different scenarios and situations that we encounter. But the patient was brilliant. Now, they did suffer from the caloric effect, and it's probably about now or around this time. What's the caloric effect, I hear you asking? If you've been watching my video and channel for a while, you probably be aware, but the caloric effect is when the suction created by the Zollner suction probe, what we're using here, or any suction probe, be it that, can get you dizzy. And that's because in each ear we have our vestibular system, which is the organ of balance. There are three rings at different angles, and they take the form of semicircular canals. In fact, that's what we call them, semicircular canals. And the organ of balance, of course, can be affected by postural changes, but also can be affected by temperature and pressure. So when you've got a wax plug like this, of course it pushes the eardrum inwards, which increases the pressure in the middle ear, which can then excite the organ of balance in comparison to their contralateral ear, so their opposite ear. This is the patient's left ear. But in terms of the caloric effect the patient experienced here, it was due to temperature change. When you suction the ear, it's a cold sensation. It reduces the ear temperature. And by reducing the ear temperature, the organ of balance on this left ear was inhibited. So a reduction in temperature inhibits the function of the organ of balance, whereas an increase in temperature has the opposite effect. It excites the organ of balance, it overworks, it becomes overstimulated. So this organ of balance has become understimulated. So it's sending less signals to the brain in comparison to their right ear, the opposite ear. When the brain receives mixed messages from both ears, it generally means that you're moving in a certain direction. So in this case, because the patient's experiencing more signals from their right ear, the brain thinks they're moving to the right side. And as such, it can determine the movement in your body plane. However, I'm going to come back to that in a moment, because I think it's well worth just fully explaining. So I'm just going to go back into there. We can see the eardrum. We can see it's quite traumatized. It's quite red and bruised. Now, there's a bit there on the left. I'm not worried about that. The less is more with this patient. And the patient can hear their pain went away, and they could hear significantly better. That's all we want to do. A bit of wax is good for us. It's healthy for us. So just going back to the caloric effect, the brain thinks they're moving to the right-hand side in this particular case because they're receiving less signals from the left, but they weren't moving, and the eyes get confused. And then you get vertigo, the room spins around, your eyes rotate, and it takes a while for the brain to settle down. And the brain only settles down once the temperature goes back to normal. It equalizes itself, reaches back to room temperature in their left ear. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video, guys. Take care. Speak soon.